She never sends the first message. You have noticed this about her for months now. You have told yourself she is busy. You have told yourself she is uninterested. You have told yourself she plays by an old-fashioned rule you do not quite understand. But then you reach out and something strange happens. She responds as though she had been waiting. She remembers a small detail you mentioned 3 weeks ago in passing. She laughs at jokes that are not even that funny. She finds reasons to keep the conversation alive long after it should have ended naturally. And here is the part most men completely miss. A woman who refuses to text first but behaves like this when you do is not playing hard to get. She is sending signals that are louder than any message she could ever type. The mistake is treating her silence as rejection, when it is actually a form of caution. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly what she has been trying to tell you, and you will never read her behavior the same way again. Most men have lived through some version of this. You meet a woman who seems genuinely interested in your life, but she never once sends the first message. She replies, she engages. She even flirts in small, subtle ways. But the phone stays quiet unless you are the one typing. The natural assumption is that she is not interested, not available, or simply bad at texting. So men do what feels logical. They pull back. They stop initiating. They quietly begin treating her like a casual friend, or worse, an option they can easily replace. And that is precisely where the misunderstanding begins. Because pulling back from a woman like this can quietly destroy something that had nothing to do with texting in the first place. The real signal is never about who typed first. It is about how she behaves when you are present, on the call, or simply inside her daily orbit. Sending a message is just one tiny behavior among dozens of others. Many women, especially those who have been hurt before or who genuinely value emotional safety, use silence as a deliberate filter. They let you lead so they can watch how you lead. They will not hand you the first move, but they will react to it in ways that reveal almost everything. Today we walk through 7 of those signals, ordered from the most subtle to the most revealing. Pay close attention to the third one because it reframes everything that came before it. Signal 1. She responds with unusual depth. Watch how long her messages tend to be, not in word count alone, but in texture. You send a quick line about your day, and she writes back something thoughtful, something observed, something that shows she was actually paying attention. Not a one-word reply, not a lazy emoji, not a clipped sentence designed to politely end the conversation. You might think she is simply more expressive than most women, or a natural conversationalist. That is the obvious read, and sometimes it is correct. The less obvious read is far more interesting. A woman who writes with that level of care when you initiate is investing energy into the interaction. She is choosing to be present with you in a way she is not choosing to be with most other men. Compare her responses to yours for a moment. If her average reply is 2 or 3 times longer than yours, and if those replies contain questions back to you, observations about your life, or small personal admissions, that is not casual texting. That is mirroring. That is sustained attention. Imagine you mention a difficult week at work. You reply, "It has been rough, but I will survive." She replies, "Tell me more about what is weighing on you. I remember you said the client situation was stressing you out." Notice the difference. One response is sympathetic in a generic, well-meaning way. The other is sympathetic in a precise, remembered, specific way. That precision is the first signal, and it rarely shows up in a woman who is uninterested. A respectful response here is simple. Match her depth occasionally, but do not overperform. If she writes 2 thoughtful paragraphs, do not suddenly flood her with a 5-paragraph essay in return. Keep your tone warm. Ask thoughtful questions back. Let her know you noticed what she shared. The transition into the next signal matters because depth in writing is only the surface. The next behavior is far harder to fake. Signal 2. She remembers the small things. You told her once, almost offhandedly, that your grandmother taught you to cook, or that your first car was a blue pickup, or that you used to run cross-country in college. Weeks pass. You never mention any of it again. Then somehow, in an unrelated conversation, she brings one of those details back. Not in a performative way, not to flatter you, just naturally, woven into a comment, a question, or a memory of her own. The natural assumption is that she has a good memory. People do, especially people in close professions like teaching, nursing, or counseling. So if she is in one of those fields, you may dismiss this entirely. Memory alone is not proof of anything, but memory combined with timing is a different story. Pay attention to when she uses those small details. If she brings them up in moments where you are doubting yourself, or when you are venting about your day, or when you are clearly not looking for a compliment, that is not good memory. That is emotional investment. She has been quietly cataloging pieces of you. She has stored them not to win an argument later, not to impress anyone, but because those pieces matter to her. Think about how that compares to the way most casual acquaintances operate. A casual acquaintance might remember your job title. They will not remember the name of the dog you had as a kid that you mentioned exactly once. A respectful response is to acknowledge it without turning it into a spotlight moment. Funny you bring that up. I had not thought about that truck in years. Simple, warm, honest. Do not reward her memory with a sudden quiz of all your old stories. She is not storing facts to impress you. She is storing them because she likes who they belong to. Now we step deeper. We leave the surface of what she says and start watching what she does. Signal 3. This is the reframe. Listen carefully. Up to this point, every signal we discussed has lived inside her words or her memories. Those are valuable, but they are still judgments you are making based on what she shares with you. She controls that performance. She can show depth because she chooses to. She can show memory because she remembers to. There is a category of signal that sits beneath all of that, and it is the one most men completely ignore. Behavioral contrast. Ask yourself one simple question. Does she treat other men the same way she treats you? If the answer is yes, her behavior toward you may simply be who she is. Many warm, emotionally intelligent women treat every man in their life with exactly this kind of attention. The more important question is something sharper. Does she treat you in a way she does not seem to treat most other men? Waiters, work colleagues, the brother of her friend, the stranger she meets at a gathering. When she is around you, something shifts. Maybe she is slightly softer. Maybe she laughs more easily. Maybe she turns her body slightly in your direction, even in a crowded room. Maybe she asks questions she would not typically ask a new acquaintance. That contrast is the real signal. It is the part she cannot fake for a sustained period. Because pretense is exhausting and inconsistency eventually shows. Look at her behavior patterns rather than any single moment. Compare how she is around you versus how you have observed her around others in similar settings. If she lights up a little differently when you are present, if her voice softens, if her posture opens, then her silence about texting first stops looking like distance. It starts looking like discipline. She is being careful with someone who matters more to her than she is ready to admit. The right response here is restraint. Do not interpret contrast as a green light to escalate fast. It is a green light to take your time. Treat her with steady warmth. Let her watch you be consistent. Behavioral contrast is a slow burn signal. The man who honors it slowly is the man she eventually trusts enough to text first. Signal 4. She creates future-shaped conversations. Watch for this one carefully, because it separates casual attention from genuine emotional investment. Casual interest lives mostly in the past and the present. You tell a story, she listens. You mention what you did last weekend, she laughs. Genuine interest starts to leak into the future. She will say things like, I would like to try that restaurant you mentioned. She will ask, are you free next month? Because there is a concert I have been dying to see. She will remember an upcoming trip you mentioned and ask, did you ever figure out that trip you were thinking about? The natural assumption is that she is simply being friendly. Perhaps she is. Many well-meaning women sprinkle future plans into conversations out of politeness. But look closer at how specific her future plans are. Are they vague wishes offered to anyone who happens to be nearby? Or are they precisely tied to your life, your interests, your unique details? Imagine a woman who says, "Someday I want to go to Italy." That is pleasant and impersonal. Now imagine a woman who says, "If you ever go to Italy, you have to visit this specific town I know about, and I want to hear what you eat there." That second version has quietly placed you in her imagined future. She has cast you in a movie that has not yet been filmed, and she did not ask your permission first. That is how the signal works. It is not a declaration, it is a tiny piece of architecture being built around you. A respectful response is to participate in that architecture gently. When she brings up a future plan, do not casually dismiss it or wave it off with a vague, "Yeah, that would be cool." Engage with it, ask a follow-up question. Show her that her vision of the future is something you can see yourself inside. But also watch her behavior around future plans. If she keeps creating them with you but always finds a reason to delay meeting or finalizing them, the future language is a sign of emotional interest, not necessarily a sign that she is ready to act on it. You are reading her thoughts, not her calendar. Honor both. Signal 5. She tolerates emotional weight from you that she would not tolerate from others. This one is quieter, and it requires you to know a little bit about how she treats the rest of the men in her life. Consider a moment you were not at your best. Maybe you had a hard day. Maybe something happened at home. Maybe you vented longer than you usually would, darker than you usually would, more honest than you usually would with anyone. She did not disappear. She did not suddenly send a two-word reply. She did not change the subject. She stayed with you through the heaviness in a way that felt grounding rather than polite. Comparatively, when other men in her life get heavy, she tends to back off or redirect. With you, she listened. Compare her tolerance deliberately. Does she offer you a level of patience, honesty, and emotional bandwidth that she rarely extends elsewhere? The natural assumption, again, is that this is simply her personality. Some people are simply good at holding emotional space. That is true. But people also hold space differently for people they love, people they tolerate, and people they are still deciding about. The man she is still deciding about receives a polite but limited version of her energy. The man she is increasingly certain about receives something deeper. She will sit with your sadness without trying to fix it. She will let you be angry without judging you. She will share her own weight in return, because she has decided you are safe enough to trust. A respectful response is obvious, but rarely followed. Match that tolerance. Do not reward her patience with gossip about her, with jokes about her to your friends, or with a sudden withdrawal when things get difficult. She showed you a vulnerable moment. Treat it like the gift it is. Now, the sixth signal is the strongest yet, and it is the one that explains everything. Signal 6. She gives you access to her real life, not her polished life. Watch for an invitation that has nothing to do with impressing you. She does not take you to the trendy rooftop where she takes her friends when she wants to be seen. She takes you to the small diner where she goes when she is tired. She does not show you her curated Instagram version of her home. She invites you into the part that is messy in a way she is still figuring out. She does not hand you her professional highlight reel. She mentions a worry, a regret, a story about loss, something that has nothing to bring her social capital. This is a deeply meaningful transition, and most men blow right past it. They interpret access as success and immediately start escalating. A woman who shows you the unpolished version of her life, who lets you see the messy kitchen, the unfiltered thought, the embarrassing family story, is offering something she cannot easily fake. The natural assumption is comforting. You tell yourself she is simply comfortable. She trusts you. She is open by nature. Sometimes that is true. But comfort with another person is not the absence of risk. It is the choice to accept risk because the relationship feels worth it. She has weighed the cost of being seen by you and decided you are safe enough to see her imperfect self. That is not casual. That is decisive. Her silence about texting first, in this context, becomes a different kind of signal entirely. She is not refusing to engage. She is carefully protecting something she does not want to damage with careless risks. She is filtering who gets the unpolished version, and you are on a very short list. A respectful response is to slow down even more, not speed up. Match the level of vulnerability she offers, but do not weaponize it. Do not use what she shared in a future argument. Do not retell it to your friends for a laugh. Do not suddenly drop the same level of vulnerability on her because you think reciprocity demands it. Let her lead how much deeper she is willing to go. Earn that depth through steady, quiet character. Signal 7. When she goes quiet, it is never to punish, it is to protect. You have reached the strongest signal. This is the master principle that finally reframes everything we have discussed. Consider the texture of her quiet periods. When she goes a few days without responding in her usual rhythm, the natural assumption is that something has gone wrong. She is upset with you. She is pulling away. She has lost interest. So you panic, or you chase, or you go cold. And either move tends to confirm your fear. But if you zoom out and look at her quiet periods over months, you may notice a pattern. She goes quiet when she is overwhelmed at work. She goes quiet when something emotional lands in her personal life that she does not yet have the words for. She goes quiet after a conversation where something emotionally significant passed between you, and she needs time to integrate it. That is not punishing silence, that is processing silence. Compared to how she behaves with most people in her life, you may notice that her quiet periods are not withdrawal from you specifically. They are withdrawal from overwhelm generally, and you simply happen to be in her world during that pause. Imagine two different women. The first woman disappears for 3 days after a difficult conversation. When she returns, she is cold, distant, and a little punishing. The second woman goes quiet for 3 days after a difficult conversation. When she returns, she is warmer than before. She mentions what was on her mind. She is not punishing you. She is settling into you. If you have lived around the second woman, you have been near someone whose quietness is a sign of intimacy, not a sign of withdrawal. The right response is patience and gentle re-entry. Do not demand an explanation for her absence. Do not send a guilt-inducing message. Do not treat her silence as evidence that you have been somehow wronged. Send a message that indicates you are still there, still steady, still interested, and still unwilling to make the silence into a drama. That is the response she is hoping for, even if she never tells you. This is the master principle. A woman who never texts first but behaves like this is not withholding herself. She is filtering you. She is deciding slowly and carefully whether you are the kind of man who can hold her stillness without turning it into a problem. If you can do that, her walls will not stay up forever. Now that you understand the master principle, let us move into the practical section. How should you respond without appearing desperate, controlling, or overly strategic? First, lead consistently without overcorrecting. Send messages, but do not flood her with them. You do not need to send 5 texts in a row to demonstrate interest. The kind of man she is watching for is the kind who does not need to be in her inbox every hour to feel secure about himself. Second, respect uncertainty rather than racing to resolve it. She may genuinely not know what she wants yet, and that is allowed. You do not have to be the man who forces clarity. You do have to be the man who lets her arrive at clarity safely. Third, learn to read attraction through contrast, not intensity. Many men mistake enthusiasm for attraction. A woman who types fast, replies instantly, and floods you with affection is not always more attractive than the woman who replies slower but writes longer, more personalized replies. Watch patterns, not pulse rates. Fourth, remember that your behavior is being observed just as carefully as hers. She is also watching how you lead, how patient you are, how steady you remain when she goes quiet, and whether you treat her unpolished moments with the same care you treated her polished ones. Fifth, never use her vulnerability against her. The single fastest way to lose a woman like this is to break a confidence, gossip about her worries, or weaponize her openness during a future disagreement. If you do that once, you lose her forever, because she will conclude that her careful filtering saved her from a real mistake. Sixth, give her time to choose you without pressuring her to choose you. A confident, emotionally mature man makes it easy for a woman to come to him. He does not chase her. He does not corner her. He creates a steady, warm space, and he lets her walk into it at her own pace. Most men do the opposite. They push, they plead, they pursue, and they panic. The man who wins a woman like this does not look like a hunter. He looks like a safe harbor. He sits still. He stays open. He lets her arrive. One final principle before we close. None of what we discussed today should be treated as a checklist. No single signal proves anything on its own. A woman who remembers your favorite coffee is not necessarily in love with you. A woman who laughs at your jokes is not necessarily attracted to you. The strength lies in the pattern. Look for the combination, the consistency, and the behavioral contrast. Look at her when she is around you versus how she is when you are not. Look at her willingness to be imperfect, to be vulnerable, to be quietly present. When those signals begin to align, the silence about texting first begins to make sense. It is not rejection. It is caution born from caring too much to risk. The man who sees that distinction clearly is the man she will eventually text first. Not because she broke a rule, but because she finally felt safe enough to stop protecting herself from him. If this resonated with you, leave me a comment with one moment you noticed where she behaved this way and what you did with it. Did you pull back, or did you hold steady? Your story might help another man reading the comments tonight. If you want more videos like this, consider subscribing. I publish new videos every week on the psychology of attraction, the silent signals women send, and the mistakes mature men make when interpreting them. Now, here is the next video you should watch. Today we talked about what her silence really means. But there is a deeper question most men do not think to ask. What happens when a woman who never texts first finally does? That single text changes everything. The timing, the words, the context of the message, even the emoji she chooses reveals a layer of emotional honesty she almost never shows. The man who knows how to read that text understands her in a way most men never will. Click the video on your screen now because it picks up exactly where this one leaves off.